It was that time to play some games. You know how it is. Had a stressful day and you find yourself playing some games and relaxing for the rest of the night. At least that was what it was like for me. Living in a suburban area where most people like to go out and enjoy life was being incredibly nosy. I hadn't lived here long, somewhere just over a year after moving away from home. It was a new style of living coming from life in the countryside. So, as you can imagine, not much would scare me. Coming back home, grabbing a few healthy snacks and finding myself with my headset on, playing some games, time was passing by pretty quickly, and I was surprisingly happy, even with my phone vibrating multiple times as the night went on. It must have been important, so after I died in the game, I huffed, picked up my phone, ready to say that I was busy and I would call them back as soon as I was done, but I'd noticed it was multiple missed calls from my ex-partner. I'll admit, we had quite a toxic relationship, and it's something I'm happy ended, as I always want to see people happy. I was in two minds about giving them a call back, but I pressed the call button reluctantly, expecting them to have a go at some extent about something. But when they picked up and I said hello, there was nothing but silence. I must have said hello a few times before I frustratingly was about to hang up, thinking they were just trying to be funny, before I heard heavy breathing coming from the other end. I literally had to stop for a few seconds just to make sure I wasn't hearing things. I then said, "Who is this?" knowing it wasn't my ex. They hadn't said anything, but just kept breathing. So I hung up the phone, turned my phone on the screen so faced on the desk, and went back to my game. I couldn't believe my luck. I thought I was really good at this game, but turns out I was bad. Just so you know, I was playing Elden Ring. I was ecstatic to be playing it after being such a fan of the Soul series. I died once more, picked up my phone noticing it vibrating again, and again it was my ex. I called back, said hello, and it was like I was repeating it every time. More annoyed than ever, mainly because the game was living rent-free in my head. I simply told this person to stop calling, there's no need, and to move on. I'll be honest, things looked up for a little while, until I then died again. And that was it. I called it for the night. I shut my PC down, turned everything off, and gave my body the stretch I think it rightly deserved. I then heard some heavy breathing. It sounded like it was right behind me, like it was in my ear, breathing into it. I could feel the goosebumps on my neck and the hair stand up. I was fighting the urge to shiver as I quickly turned around to be greeted by nothing. Nobody was there. But I knew I could hear this breathing, or more, feel it. Just for context, I was in my bedroom, and directly behind my desk was my bed. Opposite my bed was my wardrobe, and then I had a bedside table on either side of the bed. Questioning whether or not I was hearing things, so I acted as if I needed to check the house over, making it seem like a very regular thing. And it paid off. That was until I did something extremely stupid and thought it would be smart to give my ex a call. But then hearing a dial tone come from back up in my room, I now knew someone was now inside with me. I have no idea why it rang this time, and before it hadn't. But as I cancelled the call, looking up the stairs, I could hear the sound of someone shuffling from under my bed, and I quickly ran for it out of my house. I called the cops as soon as I hit outside, but still within sight of my home. The operator said someone was literally around the corner, and honestly, not sure if I was extremely lucky, but a cop car turned up pretty fast, spotting that man running out of my home. I watched as they rushed on after him, as I stood by my home, actually terrified to go back inside. I waited for around 15 minutes before they reappeared with the man in handcuffs. I explained everything what happened, and they chucked him into the back of the police car. No words were exchanged, and I hadn't even seen the man before. When we got into my home and searched it, they came across a large machete tucked away under my bed. I told them it wasn't mine, and frankly, I started to feel panic set in, because it was the realization something bad could have happened. My friend Sam was nagging me to play some games. Have a game night, he says. Thing was, I was in a work mode kind of mind frame. The idea of gaming was just something I wasn't feeling. But with relentless nagging, I reluctantly agreed, but said that part of the deal was that she would play more so I could still get work done in the background. So, with that agreed upon, I had grabbed my laptop and heading on over to her home. She had just moved home from a different country, and we had stayed friends for such a long time that I think she was more excited than I to actually spend time together, as we had known each other as kids. To my surprise, she had gone out of her way to have been to the shops and bought so much snacks and drinks that I'm sure she was planning on wanting a game night for more than one night. My jaw was literally floored as I closed the front door and gave her a big hug for living alone for the first time and being all grown up. I said about the neighborhood, giving a brief rundown on what it used to be, having quite the history of it being rough. But for the past few years, it had turned around quite a lot, so I didn't think too much about it. And she said she had done the research herself. So, the gaming night commenced. Parking our bums on the sofa, me with a laptop and working, whilst also having the occasional game, while she sat next to me like a proper gamer with a headset and everything, trash talking to everybody on the chat. Always made me laugh, mainly because she had seemed to become a completely different person, and I always brought her up on it, playfully. As the night went on though, someone knocked on the front door. I'll be honest, being the only one hearing it and having to put the laptop away so I can chill and eat the food, I used my feet to give her a nudge to let her know. She wasn't expecting anyone, but happily bounced to her feet and greeted whoever it was. Apparently, it was some lovely man who had gotten the address wrong. Thankfully, I took over the game, so it was my time to play for a while, and I'll be honest, I was rubbish, so I handed it back to her whilst noticing her laughing. Then the door knocked once again. I told her I'll answer it this time, and walked on over to the door and was greeted by a man. His demeanour was odd. He had a smile initially until he saw me and it dropped, and he seemed extremely upset and angry. And I hadn't done anything. I politely asked if I could help with anything, but he simply mumbled something under his breath before walking off. I closed the door confused, and Sam quickly noticed as she quickly asked what was wrong. I explained the very odd encounter, whilst also trying to put things together, wondering if it was the same man she had encountered not too long ago. Turns out it was, and he hadn't gone away. We both noticed him standing outside in the pavement, just looking up to the house. I won't lie, it was scary and extremely weird. I opened the front door and told him to move along or the police would be called. Nothing could have prepared me for what was to come. Wanting to head home, Sam begged me to stay, just for company, especially with that weird guy still lurking around. So, locking up the home and checking everything, I headed into the kitchen, the last room to look over, and freaked out when I see this man standing at the window. And I mean standing right at the window, looking in. I actually screamed a little before I grabbed hold of my phone and I showed I was calling the police before putting it to my ear and staring right back at him. Sam came running down the stairs to see what the commotion was before she too noticed a man at the window. His smile widened as soon as he saw Sam and turned all his focus on her. It was the weirdest thing I have ever seen. Whilst I was talking to the operator though, the man literally started banging on the window, and I mean properly hitting it as hard as possible. Even the operator was asking what the noise was. She knew the situation was escalating quite rapidly and said someone would be with us shortly. Then the window broke, and I knew it was time to run for it. I darted for the front door, while Sam went to run up the stairs before I grabbed her and pulled her with me. I quickly looked back into the kitchen and could see he was climbing through. We then ran onto the street and started knocking on our neighbour's door. Nobody was answering, and we now saw the man running out the front door after us. Quickly, we ducked down, and I could see through some bushes he had a knife in his hand. When the police arrived seconds later, he hid the knife and acted like a complete civilian. We both quickly ran down and told him exactly what happened, and that he had a knife. He turned on his denial mode, but was quickly detained to be searched through, and I found out his name was Joseph Barnes, who actually lived next door. That's right, the door we knocked on for help. It was his home. Safe to say, Sam stayed with me until she found out a new place much closer to where I was, and we haven't heard from that man so far.